what we're going to cover, and this is just pretty informal. I just wanted to go over some of the screens that you might see in Estimate Entry and ECO, the Engineering Change Order module. I'm going to kind of go through that, but feel free to just shout out any questions. I'll do my best on answering it, and we'll go from there. So we're going to start off with manufacturing. We'll start off with ECO, and that's the Engineering Change Order. So what you would see once you have that installed, you're going to set up approval codes, and that's going to be under the manufacturing setup. And so what that looks like, it's just going to be a grid here. So you can set up to 7 approval sequences that you would go through. And I'm just going to pull up one here, the standard one. You'll have your approval type. You can have a password for that. Your coordinator is going to be the person that kind of starts off any approval. And you can always link that to a Sage 500 user by selecting them from the grid. You can choose an option to have that approval be done in a sequence, or you can uncheck that, and basically it goes through these different departments, and they can approve that at any time. It doesn't need to be in sequence of the prior person. And then you can also select to change, remove prior approvals. In any case, you can remove prior approvals. So basically, if you have engineering say, yes, it's been approved, but then it gets to plant manager, and plant manager says, no, we need to do a change, that'll allow this engineering department to remove that approval, because then it would kind of have to go through again. So that's what this checkbox option is for. So that's the setup, and you can set up, unlimited approval types, and you can always pull in different people. And then the SMTP or Exchange, if you're going to be using this through the document transmittal type process, which is an additional setup, and that's going to be set up through SQL Server Mail. Now, I don't have that set up right now, so I can't show that to you. So once you have approval setups, we can see how that looks like in the routing. So I'm just going to pull up one of my EC engineering change order routings. Okay, so with engineering change order, you can have versions, you can have revision levels, dates, references. You're only going to have one active routing at a time. And the approved ECO routing is always going to be the active routing. So this is how that looks. It kind of looks like the approval type setup screen, but now we have the specific type tied to a reference. You can also tell it the effective date. So if it was like a model for, our current year for 2015, you might have that effective January 1 through December 31st, 2015, and then that retires it on that day. Here's where the approvals are done, so each department would just click off whether or not they're approved, and here is saying that the routing has been fully approved, it can't be unapproved. So there's security around that. You can also see notes, maybe each person has a note, and then the dates that those were approved. Revision level, these are just data entry or limited character places. You can use this revision level with, in conjunction with the date, and the revision date could be like the date of the ECO. And then the reference thing, you can have, I'm sorry? Yep.
That's not tied to the
it could be the revision of the routing. It could be related to the ECO. But you can use these fields however you like, these three. So it's really going to be what process you put in place around it. The reference allows up to 25 characters, so it is limited, but you might want to show like the reference of the drawing or a blueprint number or some type of reference to the routing. So I'm going to pull up, so currently this is the active routing. I want to pull up one so you can see, hopefully I've got it here. Okay, this is the third revision of this. It's been approved, and we've got a revision date and revision level. It also allows you to put a CAD drawing on, so this is how that would look. You would have the path to the CAD drawing, and then you can open that. So it doesn't automatically open. You have to click that open button, but it just pulls in some type of drawing. Every time it opens it, I notice that it does ask me if I want to save changes. I'm not quite sure why, but it might be based on the CAD drawing itself. And then you can just, so that's how you would pull that up. Being that this is an approved ECO, if I go into the detail and I try to make a change, it's going to tell me that it can't be done. So when I hit the save button, it actually prompts me to create a new ECO. If I say no, I don't want to create a new ECO, then it's going to default those changes back. So it's just another step of security around ECO. So I'm going to say yes, that I want to create a new one. And what that does is it pulls in the copy to routing. You may have used this before with this little copy button here. But what it will do is it will copy to the next version ID available. And just tell that OK. Tells you the copy successful, and we can pull that one in from here. So when it comes in, it will tell you which parent it was copied from. So it was copied from version 003. You would make your necessary changes here. This would be 4, and then maybe today's date. But again, it's not going to be active until you approve each of these, or until each of these get approved by their department. Every time you save it, it'll create a new change order, again, to do the copy, and that one's going to be an unapproved one. So it basically gives you that template for the next one. And you'll see that in the lookup. So this one won't be used. You won't be able to create a work order from it because it's not active. Again, it's not active until it's approved. So, so there's those measures that are taken and, that are held by the system so that you don't accidentally select an incorrect routing for a work order. So that's what I have on ECO. We'll also look at estimate entry. So that was another one that you wanted to look at. Estimate markups. Okay, so again, there's a little bit of setup for estimates, and it kind of looks like the work order screen, or I'm sorry, work center screen, where you have these run setup materials, so these costs. Now, these are all defined in percentages. It doesn't say that, but if you look at the help, it will tell you that they're all defined in percentages. This is just an example of a markup code for a one-time. Let me pull up my other one. This is just a 5% markup across the board. And so basically what you're doing here, you're putting in how much you want to mark up your cost to create a price. So cost is going to be your cost versus price what you're going to sell it to the customer. So obviously, 5% is pretty slim margin. It would likely be a lot more than that. So once you have your, and again, you can set up multiple markups to be used. So once you get that set up, you can go into your activities and get a new estimate. So estimate entry, it kind of looks like the routing. Let's see if I've got one. I think I was playing around with this the other day. Yeah. So what you would do is you would have, you can have your customer address, because you might have multiple addresses for that customer, who it was requested by, their item ID if they have one, and your item class, so forth. Revision level, again, these are all kind of like not required, but you can fill those in. And then, numerous dates that might relate to either a quote or just the estimate itself. Detail, this is going to look like your routing. So those are the steps. And then totals tab is just going to be the costs the cost and the price that are going to generate. So starting back here, you can have up to 5 different estimate quantities. Some customers might purchase, 1,000, they might purchase 5,000. So it depends on what they're looking for. You can only require, you're only required to put in 1, but you can have up to 5. And I'm actually going to just create a new one so you can see that from scratch. You just take the next number, you can do a copy from. So estimate entry allows you to copy from 3 different places. You can copy from a work order, and a different estimate, or routing. So we'll just take a work order. And then you're going to copy it to the estimate. You can select a work order. The item should come in from the work order. Just the next number. And then these just kind of come in based on the original work order. And then you could select your markup. I'm actually going to select the 5. Okay, copy successful. So we see that here. I still need to put in my customer, the address, and this is actually the name of the address from the customer file. Requested by me, customer, this is just post item, and again, these aren't required, but I would say let's put in some dates. I'm just going to paste them in there. And a quantity, let's do 1,000. Detail came from that particular work order. And again, we can see up here the parent work order that it came from, so the parent that it was copied from. And we'll save that. So once that's saved, we can take a look at the totals. You can add one-time charges if you want. Call this like a custom, I don't know, custom fee, who knows. And we can put that into the piece of it, or we can leave it out. So I'm going to save that. So we'll see the one-time cost now populates in the grid here. We've got the material costs. These all came from, the records in Sage. And you get a total the total price, the total piece price if it's a different unit of measure, or there's a unit of measure conversion. And then it gives you your gross profit. You can always override the price here. So we'll just leave it like that. You can preview what that looks like. It'll give you an option to preview either the estimate or the quotation. So let's look at the estimate. Just a little bit smaller. So here we can see it's just a general report. Obviously this report's standard. We can always modify it as needed. It's a little clunky looking. The first column is going to be the first price that we're quoting, the 1,000. So you could have up to those 5 different prices. And then our one-time fee. So yeah, like this is a little clunky because some things are overlapping on here. But so this is the custom fee. Now, one thing I noticed is that even though we said 25 bucks on the custom fee, it still marks it up that 5%. So keep that in mind if you're doing markups and one-time fees. And then it says indicates the one-time charge is included in the unit cost or unit price. And that was that little checkbox that we selected in piece. So we'll see that there. So this is more of an internal document. Let's look at the like what you would send the customer. So now we would say, do you want to print the quotation? Okay. So this is an external document. It's going to give you the quote number to the customer. And I'm going to make this just a bit smaller. So again, yeah, some cleanup on the report here to make it a little bit better. The quantity, it doesn't even fit on here. So yeah, this report kind of needs to be cleaned up a bit. But the data's here, and then it gives, you just basically send this out to the customer, email it out, they would approve it, and then you could, at that point, you might want to turn it into an actual sales order quote or a sales order once they approve it. It's probably going to be like an external document because it shows the sold to. It has their customer item, and it has your part number here. Gives you the expiration dates. These are the dates that I just kind of copied and pasted in. And who requested it. From here, if you want to bypass this estimate entry, we'll go ahead and update this quote as printed too, so I could show you that. I'm going to just come out of it and come back in so that it makes the changes. So the quote, it now shows the quote is printed. You can't uncheck that. It's always going to show as printed once you select that. So to create the sales order of the quote, again, you might bypass the whole estimate process, but you would just come into here and you can select a quote and the quote quantity. Now the quote quantity is going to default from these. So if you want to select the first one, but then you need to change it, you could change it at the quote level. So we're just going to click OK. And then it tells you that quote 438 has been created. So we'll go take a look at that. So now let's say we did the quote and we want to change it, then you can definitely modify this to, like, you know, maybe they only want to do 800. And then you would just go through your regular process. From here you can obviously generate an actual sales order and print this like you normally would. If you want to create the, I'm just going to say okay, that's just the gross profit error because we didn't mark it up enough. You can always change it and you can do a create type sales order and do the same thing. So that was successful. These are just if there's any errors or notifications when creating the quote or sales order. And this, the sales order fields, these are just like, you'll see these on your sales order. Source, you know, you might want to say the source of this was, this customer was, you know, direct mail, or you have a customer PO number, you could pop that in at this point, and it gets pushed over to the actual sales order. So that's...
I guess I'm a little confused on what is the purpose of the quote that you're talking about. The one you did the end? Yeah. Yeah, that was the one that you sent to the customer. And then, but because you may create a quote in here, you can do everything automatically. Just to streamline everything.
Right.
Right now we have everything separate the way that we're doing it. And when you have time to generate the quote thing and do it, this would automatically, when you do the initial, it streamlines everything so that the work order does, yeah, I guess that's what I'm struggling with is we did an estimate, okay? And then within that estimate part of it, you could generate something to send to the customer. Yeah, because that last one's the last one. Right, cool, yeah. Right, we'll handle it. And then, after that, we said we can generate a quote. So, I don't understand the difference. You say you generate a quote, I mean, you're doing the cost, right?
Right, you don't have to do the estimate. You could do an estimate and a quote, or an estimate or a quote. It's basically, if you want the estimate to come from manufacturing department, you send them the estimate. They might approve it, they might not approve it. If you're not sure whether or not they're going to approve that quote, or that, I'm sorry, if you're not sure they're not going to approve that estimate, then you probably don't want to put it into the system as a quote. The quote would be there for your, it kind of depends on your business process. You might have if you have the same person sending out estimates as the person that's sending out quotes, then you could bypass the estimate part and just put it right in as a quote. Some people want the estimate approved before you send out an official quote. So it just kind of depends. It just gives you more options and how many different areas or levels of approval are needed from the customer perspective. One thing I forgot to mention with the ECO, I'm sorry, I'm going to shift gears back to ECO. I wanted to make sure that you guys were aware that with ECO, it's really basic that it's built around a single level BOM. So if I remember correctly, I think you guys do only use single level BOM. But if you start getting into like the multi-level bill of materials to where you have, you know, one level that's used in multiple routings, the ECO can become a challenge because it doesn't automatically go out there and update all your other routings with the new ECO. So I wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that. Okay. All right, so that's all I've got for this. Hopefully it kind of gave you like an overview. I know it wasn't too descriptive, but just like a broad overview.